Tim. It is Tuesday, the 2nd of February today, and we're going to start by warming up again, just like we would if we were in school. So I've got some numbers in my head that I'm thinking of, and you're going to guess and try and work out and read my mind again which numbers that I am thinking of. But today I'm going to give you some different clues to guess my number, and we're going to be thinking about one more and one less. So what comes before the number and what comes after the number. So are you ready? And I'll circle them after I've given you the clue, and we can look to see together at the end if you could guess my mind and read my mind. Are you ready? So again, we need our whiteboard and pen to help us with this. Year 2. Okay. So Mrs. Wood is thinking of a number. My number is one more than 25. My number is one more than 25. So what number is one more than 25? Write it down. Cross it out. Okay. The next number that I'm thinking is one less than 45. One less. So what comes before 45? One less. One less than 45. Write it on your whiteboard. Okay. The next number that I'm thinking is one more than 29. What comes after 29? What is one more than 29? Can you read my mind? One more than 29. My next number is one less than 75. One less. So what comes before 75? One less. Write it on your whiteboard. One more than 99. What comes after 99? One more than 99. This clue's a little bit harder. My number that I'm thinking of is in between 34 and 32. So my number that I'm thinking is in between 34 and 32. What number is in the middle of 34 and 32? So what comes after 32? What is one more than 32? And what is one less than 34? So you should have on your board 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different numbers that you've written down. And those numbers should be 26, one more than 25, 30, one more than 29, 44, one less than 45, and one more than 43, 74, one more than 99 was 100, so you should have 100 written down there, a 3-digit number. And my last one was a tricky one. What number was in between 32 and 34? And it was 33. So well done if you got those correct. So today we're moving on to the next part of our fractions activity. So we're looking today at page 18. So before we carry on, just check to make sure that you've got the right page in front of you. Brilliant. Now, we started to look at fractions yesterday, and we tried to look at how we can think about fractions in an easier way, because if we say the word fractions, sometimes that can seem a little bit scary, especially to us grown-ups. So today, we're not thinking so much about fractions of shape. We're thinking about fractions of number. Now, we talked about yesterday how fraction just means part of. So we looked at yesterday finding parts of a whole in a shape. So we had a look at the pizza to begin with, and we had the whole pizza, and we divided the pizza first in half. So there were 2 pieces in total. So our denominator was 2. And then Mrs. Wood just wanted 1 half. So that was 1 out of 2. Then we looked at dividing the waffle into 4. And when we're dividing into 4 parts, that's quarters. You divide this piece into quarters. So I've halved it and I've halved it again there. So this time I've got 4 parts in total. And I'm going to give away 1 out of 4. So 1 quarter. So 1 out of 4. My first one was 1 out of 2. What if Mrs. Wood gave you 3 parts? How would I write that as a fraction? Have a go on your whiteboard. How would I write 3 parts out of 4 as a fraction? Okay, so you should have written 3 quarters. So yesterday we were thinking about finding parts of a shape. Today we're moving on at finding parts of a number. So this was again yesterday what we looked at. We looked at dividing the shapes into parts. That was yesterday's learning. But today we're dividing parts of a number, which is a little bit trickier. So I'm going to show you hopefully a way to do this to make it a little bit easier. So you can use your whiteboard as well and have a little go. So at the top it says find 1/2 of the stars. So I know that 1/2 means 2 groups in total, and I just want to find how many are in one of those groups. So let's count first of all. We need to find out how many stars we've got in total. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got here 6 stars in total. So I need to divide and share my 6 stars and put them into 2 groups. Because if we remember from the fractions yesterday, the bottom number, the denominator, is the whole. So how many parts in total? So I'm going to divide my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my 6 stars into 2. Okay? So you might want to get this on your whiteboard and draw 6 stars. Okay? Or you might want to get 6 objects at home, maybe pieces of pasta, like we looked at last week, and get 6 and divide them into 2 groups. So I've got 2 children down here. I'm going to move my stars into 2 groups. I'm going to divide them into 2. So 1 for him, 1 for him, 1 for him, 1 for her, 1 for him, and 1 for her. So how many stars do each of my children have? They should have the same amount. They should have equal groups. So I've divided my 6 stars into 2 groups. Okay, how many have they got each? They've got 3. So I want to know what 1/2 of 6 is. So I want to know how many is in one group out of the 2 groups, the 2 parts that make the whole. So they've got 3 each. So half of the stars, 1/2 of 6 equals 3. So we've looked at the bottom, the denominator, that tells us how many groups we need to divide it into, and the top number is how many of those groups we need. So let's have a look at a tricky one next. So this time, it's asking me not to find 1/2, it's asking to find 1/3. So I've got 3 children here because I know that I'm going to be dividing my number into 3. So let's count first of all how many shapes we've got all together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got 6 this time, the same as last time, but I'm not finding 1/2 of 6 this time. I want to find 1/3 of 6. So I want to find 1 out of 3 parts of 6. Okay? So I've got 3 children this time, and you could have a go with this practically at home using pasta or pegs, or I even saw Alfie using sweets last week, which was great. So I've got my children at the bottom, so I'm going to go 1 for you, 1 for you, One for you. One for you. One for you. And one for you. So each child should have the same amount in their group. So I've divided 6 into 3 parts. So how many have they got each? How many has this little boy got here? How many has this little girl got here? And how many has this little boy got here? How you're grown up. They've got 2 each. And it's asking me to just find 1/3. So how many are in one part? So 2. 1/3. 1 out of the 3 groups would be 2. Okay. If it was asking me 2/3, I would count how many are in 2 groups. So I would count 2 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we're finding a fraction of a number, we need to first of all divide it into how many parts it's asking us in the denominator. This time it's asking us to find 1/4, so 1 out of 4 parts. So that means we need to divide it first of all into 4. So let's count how many spots we've got, how many circles we've got first, so you can count as well, going along with your finger. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I want to know what 1/4 of 8 is. Okay, so I've got 8 altogether. Now I know that I'm going to be dividing these circles into 4 groups because my denominator tells me so. So I've got 4 children here. So I'm going to move the spots, the circles, and share them in equal parts with the 4 children at the bottom. So are we ready? So 1 for this little boy, 1 for this boy, 1 for this girl, 1 for this little girl. And I'll go back to the beginning again. 1 for this little boy, 1 for this boy, 1 for this girl, and then 1 for this little girl. How many, year 2, have a look at the board. How many do they have each? And is it fair? Are they all equal parts? So this little girl has got 2. This little girl has got 2. This boy has got 2. And this boy on the end has also got 2. So we've divided our number, our 8, into 4 parts. But it's only asking me to find 1 part out of 4. So 1/4 of 8. Tell your grown up how many are in one group. 1, 2. If it was asking me 2/4 of 8, I would need to count how many are in 2 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you have a go at this one. What if it was asking me this time how many 3/4? So what would 3/4 of 8 be? So count how many this time are in 3 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3/4 of 8 would be 6. That is quite tricky, year 2, but I find this the easiest way to find fractions of number by dividing them first of all practically. So that's why we use our objects at home into the bottom number, so how many parts we need altogether, and then we can count using finding out using the numerator. So here we just need to count how many is in 1 part, or in 2 parts, or in 3 parts. Okay. And if it asked me to find the whole 4 out of 4, that would be how many I started with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. So the whole would be 8 because I had 8 to start with. Okay. So that is quite tricky, year 2, and that should help you with your activity today. So question number 1, is asking you to halve the circles. So what I would do first of all is count how many circles you've got. So you might want to get some pasta or some practical equipment and lay them out on the table. Now half means 2 groups, so you can divide them into 2 groups and then find out how many is in 1 group. The next one is asking you to find a third of the squares. So you've got to divide the squares, count how many there are altogether, and make 3 groups, 3 equal groups, and how many is in 1 group. Okay, triangle, it's asking you to divide it into quarters, so 4 groups this time, and how many are in 1 group. This one here is asking you what fraction of the moons are shaded. So you've got to first tell me how many groups there are and how many groups are shaded. Okay. So just to finish then, it's asking me now to find 1/2 of 16. Now I haven't got any shapes to help me this time. So I'm going to go through with you now how you can do this on your whiteboard. And this is a little bit like what we're doing tomorrow, so it gets a little bit trickier. So it's asking me to find 1/2 of 16. Okay. Now, like I said, there's nothing practical on my board to help me here. So let's look at the fraction 1/2. So 1/2 is 2 parts altogether, and I only want 1 out of those 2 parts. So it's asking me to find 1/2 of 16. So I'm going to draw 16 objects. I think I'll go with 16 circles. Okay, you can help me count along here too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so I've got 16 all together there. That's my whole. And it's asking me to split them into 2 groups. Okay, so I'm going to change my colour now. And I'm going to start with 1 for me and 1 for Mrs. O'Keefe. So we'll have 1 for me, 1 for Mrs. O'Keefe, 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 1 for me. So I should have now the same amount of shapes with a line through as the same amount of shapes without a line through. So the ones with lines through are for me and the other ones are for Mrs. O'Keefe. And that should tell me what my 1/2 of 16 is. So I've split my number 16 into 2. Let's find out. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 of the shapes that I've put lines through are for me. Let's count my other ones now for Mrs. O'Keefe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ah, Mrs. O'Keefe would also get 8. So she would get 8 and I would get 8. So what is 1/2 of 16 then? One group had 8 in and the other group had 8 in. So this was for Mrs. Wood. And this was for Mrs. O'Keefe. Both got the exact same amount. 8 in one group, 8 in the other. But it's only asking me to find 1 out of the 2 groups. So 1/2 of 16 would be 8. Because if I split 16 into 2, we would have 8 each. And you could do that with objects as well. Get 16 pieces of pasta. 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you. And then you would have 8 each. You would have the 2 groups. It's asking you how many out of 2 groups. 1 out of 2. Have you found that okay, year 2? It's a little bit tricky to draw, but using it practically should really help you. Okay. Can't wait to see your work, year 2. Bye-bye.